I'm constantly reminded now even more than ever that as I study and seek to grow closer to my God through evaluating his mind, doctors do heart transplants, but they must be familiar with the heart as a vessel itself before they can engage in any individual heart. And if I'm going to know anything about the heart of God, I must be acquainted with his heart. And he's given us, if you will, a piece of his mind in the form of the Holy Scriptures. And he tells me something that I listen to now more than ever, that I didn't make you to keep you here. I didn't make you to keep you here. For I sent my son on your behalf to give his life as a ransom so that he may deliver you from this evil age. He tells me that. The Bible lets me know in Galatians 1:4 the purpose that God sent the Son. He wants to get me out of here. It does not do God's heart well when he sees me cry. He doesn't like that. He didn't design me to cry tears of sadness. When I have to deal with the death of a loved one and my heart is burdened because of it, it burdens his heart as well, because he did not design me to die, nor any of my loved ones to die. When we have to stand over our loved one who is laid in the bed and that person is sick and dealing with whatever ailment it may be, and you're praying to him, he listens. He listens carefully, because your desire is also his desire. I didn't design your loved one to be sick. And so what I'm going to do for the human race is I'm going to pay for them. I'm going to pay the cost. They can't pay it. But I'm going to give them a price, a valuable, precious gift that should provoke any man to love and good works. It should. I watch men and how men are moved by the things their wife gives them. I watch women and I see how joyful they become when their husband finally surprised them with that thing. I watch children as they're around on various holidays and how joyful they are because of the gifts their parents give to them. I just know that if I give them the gift of my son, they're going to be moved with even a greater joy. And I have to wrestle with that in my own mind. And I have to ask myself, do I really appreciate what he's trying to do for me? Trying to get you out of here and bring you to a place where you don't have to worry about crying anymore. Not because you're sad. You don't have to worry about pains anymore. You don't have to worry about tears anymore. You never have to plan for the next funeral. You don't need life insurance, for your life will indeed be insured. And it's that place I desire to be. And I pray you do too. Good morning. Good to see those of you who are with us. If you will, after worship, please, again, give me a few moments of your time if you don't mind. Psalm 122, a psalm that we are familiar with, at least the first verse. At least the first verse. It is often quoted in regular assemblies. I'm sure that every Sunday that this verse somewhere in the world is referenced. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Will you read with me the remainder of the text? I know we're familiar with verse 1, but will you read with me carefully the remainder of this psalm? And listen to the words of the psalmist David. And listen to what he says as he explains the reasons and the purposes for his gladness. There are reasons and there were purposes that stimulated the heart of this king as they readied themselves to journey to Jerusalem, to God's habitation. And so he says, our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, listen to the thoughts, that is built as a city that is compact together. Don't miss that detail. We'll come back to it in a few moments. Jerusalem is a city that is compact together. Now, he's describing why he's glad. Don't miss that point. Jerusalem is a city that is compact together. He says, to which the tribes go up, even the tribes of the Lord. This is an ordinance or a testimony for Israel. Don't miss that thought either. This is an ordinance or this is a testimony for Israel. Don't miss that. To give thanks to the name of the Lord, for their thrones were set for judgment. It's another valuable point we got to consider. The thrones of the house of David. Pray for peace. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. May peace be within your walls and prosperity within your palaces. For the sake of my brothers and my friends, I will now say, may peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord of our God, I will seek your good. If I were to give a title to this lesson on this morning, it would be this: Restoring the Gladness. There is a reason to be glad. Restoring the gladness. There is a reason to be glad. I want you to think with me as we work through this text, just to deal with the text, then make a few applications. I want you to notice the gladness of David. I want to at least set a context minimally. The likely situation that precipitated this psalm was the situation in 2 Samuel 6. If you're familiar with that, David at one time had a desire to get the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. That ark was very important, a very vital piece in the ancient Hebrew family. For it was on the top of that ark where a mercy seat sat, where God would meet his people. It would be that place that the people would be able to encounter Yahweh. And for some time, they had not been able to experience that presence. And David would begin to reign as king, and he would go through what we would call a restoration movement. There are actually several of them in the biblical narrative, if you are all familiar. There was a restoration moment under the reign of David. There was a restoration moment under the reign of Hezekiah. There was a restoration moment under the reign of Josiah, of Jehoshaphat. There will be a restoration moment after Babylonian captivity. All throughout the scriptures, we find these restoration movements, and what we find subsequent to those various restorations is a revitalized worship. There is an excitement that comes when restoration precedes the worship. When the people of God begin to experience the presence of their God when he is acting within their culture, their congregation, and within their community, when they know he has entered this atmosphere and restoration begins to take place, when things are restored, people get excited. Does that make sense? And so David, now I want you to notice, and our English doesn't necessarily bring this out, but it's suggested in the verbiage of the Hebrew text. When David is said to be glad at the word that said, let's go, there is a desire that is already present in the heart of the king. What the word does for the heart of the king is trigger a gladness that is already there. David already has an intimate connection to God and the people, but I hadn't been to Jerusalem in a while. I haven't gone to the tabernacle in some times, but I have already placed myself in a position where I'm connected to God. I am connected to his people. I am already in spirit. And when somebody brings him a word to say, let's go to God's house, the gladness is not brought in, the gladness is empowered. Does that make sense? Do I need to? So what's your point? David, when he hears the word, let's go, he's happy to go because he already has a genuine connection to the God and to the people of God. So when it's time to go to the place where God meets, the gladness is further accentuated. I'm ready to go where the people of God are. I'm ready to go to the assembly. I can be glad at home by myself. I can have a genuine love for the people at home alone. But when you tell me it's time to go to the place where God's people are, that triggers more gladness within me. Y'all get that? The gladness is triggered. It's empowered. It's stimulated. David and the rest of the tribes of Israel does not care what it will take to get to Jerusalem. We know who's there and we want to get there. Does that make sense? See, nobody who sufficiently worships gets ready Sunday morning. I'm glad Monday. I'm glad Tuesday. I'm glad Wednesday. I'm glad Thursday. And when Saturday night come around, I know I'm going to the place where God is and his people are. Does that mean? And I'm glad. I'm not looking for reasons to not go there. I'm looking for reasons to be there. That makes sense? And there are reasons why that makes them glad. There's a reason. There's a reason. What he doesn't mention is sacrifices. He doesn't mention ritual. He does mention Thanksgiving. And he does mention peace for the brothers and sisters. I want you to get that. Now, they're going to offer sacrifices. They're going to offer animals. They're going to offer ritualistic worship, activities. But he doesn't mention that. I think that's important. I think that's very important. I want to say it again. It's that important. I think it is. He's glad. And he's not glad because he's going to put his money in the collection plate. That's not what makes him glad. He's glad. He's glad. And it's not so much because he's going to hear a good sermon. He doesn't mention that. But something triggers him. Something empowers him. And the word that he heard when they said, let's go, it didn't put the gladness in his heart. The gladness was already there. They just stimulated it. It's time to go. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? See, anybody that has to be rubbed into worship ain't gonna worship. See, this is your thing. This is something that you have to personally have an affinity for. You have to personally have a strong affinity for God and his people to experience this type of power. You have to. Worship is only revitalized when people have a genuine concern for God, his people, and his movement. Does that make sense? Now let's walk through this text. He says, now, watch this. Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. We hear. And what is Jerusalem? Who designed this city? God did. Now, that's important. God did. Who does God did? What do you say, David? We're standing in the gates, and we're standing in a city that is compacted together. Now, that may not mean anything to you if you don't understand what David meant. The tightness of the city make the people sit close. I want to say that again. This is what David is glad about. See, Israel was scattered around Jerusalem in their various clans and tribes, in their various communities. But when they came to the assembly, that scattering began to enclose, and everybody's sitting in Jerusalem close. Ain't nobody trying to sit in the back away from the front. They want to be close. They want to be close to everybody. David is saying, man, I'm glad. You know why? Because I get to sit next to my brethren. The city is made in such a way where we gotta be close. And I'm glad for this moment I can be close to my brothers. Does that make sense? Man, this is what's triggering this king. This is what's triggering this man. Man, it's time to go. I'm ready to go because, man, we all scattered all over the city. But when we get to Jerusalem, God has designed this city and he has designed this city in such a way where now I don't have to worry about Dan being a few miles from me. Dan is going to be in the city with me. Now I can sit in the assembly next to my brethren. I'm glad to go to Jerusalem, to the assembly, so I can now sit in the presence and next to and close to my friends. Does that make sense? That's why he's glad. That's why he's glad. I'm looking for the seat that's closest to my family as I can be. I want to be close. Does that make sense? And I'm not talking about your select family. I'm talking about the whole family. Not those in your inner circle, but everybody that's circled within Jerusalem. Does that make sense? We don't have church like that nowadays. Nowhere. I've been to a lot of congregations. And what we do, everybody do the same thing. Everybody got their select seat. And that's where I'm going to be. Don't ask me to move. Don't ask me to go. Well, won't you just come close to the brothers? I don't want to be close. I want to sit in my seat. This my seat. You look close enough, my print is on there. I've been there a long time. If you look close enough, that gum I put there about 20 years ago is still there. I've marked it. This mine. But David said, man, I'm glad. I'm glad because you know why? Man, God done built this city in such a way where I got to be close. And I want to be close to my brethren. Does that make sense? This is the month we talk about restoring work. Get back to the ancient way of worship. I didn't give you that. Restore worship the way they did it. What stimulated them. But listen to the text. Listen to the text. He says, the tribes go up, even the tribes of the Lord. I've told you, remember this point. This is an ordinance for Israel. This is a testimony, your translation may say. What do you mean? What do you mean? When all the other nations begin to see Israel migrating to Jerusalem, the other nations know they're going to Jerusalem to worship their God. They're not just going to church to go through an assembly, to go through some rituals. They going to thank God and to do something. We're going to talk about this in just a minute. And do something for the people. And see, what ends up happening is as Israel moves to Jerusalem, the whole world knows why they're going there. Everybody knows what they're going to church for. And their movement in that direction begins to speak a testimony or an ordinance to the nation. Why in the world is Israel going to Jerusalem? And they began to learn why they went to Jerusalem. For one reason, Yahweh is there. The God of the people of Israel are there. But understanding the God of the people is there, it also stands to reason that if I'm going to go into the presence of the God, there is something the God demands of the people. And the God of the people, Yahweh that is, demands for his people to be close. He built the city for it. Y'all are communicating something to all of the world about your closeness. But you're also going to thank Yahweh, your Lord. You come in to praise him. You come in to honor him. That's what you come to the assembly for. You come to honor him. But nobody honors him who has not learned to be still and know he's Yahweh. No, when you look at Psalm 46, I won't go through the whole psalm, but he describes him as a refuge and strength and as a river of life that provides stability even while the world is in turmoil. The earth is removed and the mountains are moved into the midst of the sea. The sea is roaring and trembling. The mountains are shaking. But there is a river whose streams make the people of the city glad. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. God will help her in that early morning. God is in her midst. And so therefore, when he speaks, the earth trembles. But watch it. For the people of his that be still, they can learn who God is. But see, we hadn't learned how to be still. See, this is really a problem for men. And I'm learning this is a problem for me. I'm being transparent with you now. I got to learn how to sit down and shut up and just listen and reflect and ponder. I have to learn to do like God and rest and cease from my labors and reflect on my Creator, my Redeemer, my Restorer, my Father, my Savior, my soul, my spirit, and I can't think about y'all. This is me time. God time. And men got to learn how to take that time. Let me move on. What's my time? Let me move on. Y'all got me sweating up here. For there are thrones. Now listen. This is a vital point. I want to stress this one. Now listen. Why are you glad, David? I'm triggered. I'm stimulated. I'm empowered because it's time. I'm already moved by God and his people. Now it's time to go into the presence of God and his people. And man, that triggers my joy. Man, I know when I get there, man, we're going to be sitting close. All of us going to be together. All of us going to be there. And there's going to be a great shout over the mountains of Zion as we look up to the heavens. And everybody within this city is going to be shouting thanksgivings of praise to Yahweh, for he is our God. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. And but also, thank you, sir. It may just be hot in here. But he says, the thrones were set for judgment. The thrones of the house of David. Now, let's do a little study. Let's do just a little study. Because if we don't understand that point. We just read it and never get any understanding of it. And so, as I communicate, in order to understand a present thought, I must be familiar with previous information. In other words, don't come to the book of Romans and try to understand Romans when I don't know Acts, John, Luke, Mark, Matthew, Malachi, Haggai, Zechariah. We just move back. Does that make sense? I got to know what flows into the text so I can know what to pull out. So why in the world does David, why are you glad? Because thrones of judgment are in Jerusalem. That makes no sense. It does if you understand what they were there for. And this is why he's glad. What are they there for? I could take you. Let's just read a few passages. What's my time? Oh, I got time. We can read a few passages. In Deuteronomy chapter 17, let's just read a little bit. In Deuteronomy 17, I'm going to take this thought. In Deuteronomy 17, in verse number 8, I'm going to do something. Verse number 10, rather. Let's just go straight to 10. I think I was right. I just was in the wrong book. It is 8. Deuteronomy 17, 8. If any case is too difficult for you to decide between one kind of homicide and another, between one kind of lawsuit and another, and between one kind of assault or another, being cases of dispute in your courts, then you shall arise and go up to the place which the Lord your God chooses. So you shall come to the Levitical priest or to the judge who is in the office in those days, and you shall inquire of them, and they will declare to you the verdict in the case. Let's read one more passage. Go to 2 Chronicles 19. I'm gonna read one more, and I'm gonna have to explain this to you just in brief. Just in brief. In 2 Chronicles 19. 2 Chronicles 19. Watch this. There's a reason why these thrones of judgment are in the city. And there's a reason why the thrones of judgment within the city are part of the reason why the King David is glad. Those thrones of judgment, those people rather on those thrones are set there for a purpose. Now, in 2 Chronicles 19, let's just go to verse 8. In Jerusalem, also Jehoshaphat appointed some of the Levites and priests and some of the heads of the father's household of Israel for the judgment of the Lord and to judge disputes among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Then he charged them, saying, thus you shall do in the fear of the Lord, faithfully and wholeheartedly, whenever any disputes come to you from your brethren who live in their cities, between blood and blood, between law and commandment, statutes and ordinance, you shall warn them so that they may not be guilty before the Lord, and wrath may not come on you or your brethren. Now, let's put this in a Hebrew scripture context. The judges, the Levites, the priest was set in Jerusalem so that whenever there is an issue between brethren, when they come to the city, they are to go to those qualified men, so all of the disputes, all of the oppressions, all of the struggles within the community of God could be eradicated. When I come to the assembly, I should be looking to deal with my issues with my brethren so they can be eradicated. Why are you glad, David? Because now I get to go to this city where all my brothers are. We get to thank God. We get to sit close to one another. And now we can get together and listen to sound ruling, and we can eliminate all the problems in the brotherhood. Does that make sense? See, the Hebrew writer would say it this way in Hebrews 10:24, that the reason you assembly is to provoke one another to love and good works. Do you come to the assembly to stimulate somebody to good? Or do you just come to go through your ritual and go home? See, but when they assemble, David is glad. Why you glad, David? Because, man, I get to go be with my brethren. And I know, man, we're going to sing reciprocally to one another, man. We're going to shout in this city. We're going to thank our God. We're going to appreciate our Lord, but we're going to also fix bad relationships. We're going to fix unhealthy relationships. We're going to clean up all the nonsense within the family of God. We're not going to let this stuff linger. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to stimulate one another to love and good works, not provoke one another to anger. Does that make sense? That's what they did. So when you came here today, when you knew last night, man, I got to go to service tomorrow, were you glad? Or did you, Brother Armstrong, say, man, you know, the only reason why I'm going, because I got to preach. That's the only reason why I'm going. I got to preach. If I don't go, man, they're going to be wondering where I'm at. Because I'm supposed to preach. Why did you come? David said, we came. I was glad because I get to be with my brothers. We get to honor our God. And we can fix broken relationships. Then he says, I'm going to pray for peace in Jerusalem. And everybody that loves the Lord, they will prosper. Peace will be in the city, prosperity within his palaces. Why are you doing this, David? Because of my brothers and my friends. I'm going to also pray for God's house, that it will have peace also. And I'm going to pray for its good. Why are you glad, David? Why are you glad, David? Why are you assembling, David? God is there, my brethren there, and we can fix one another there. That's why I want to go to the assembly. See, the assembly means so much more when you know you're going for somebody, not for yourself. See, the reason people miss assemblies, and let me be clear. Let me be clear. There is only one demanded assembly. That's Sunday. That's the only one that's demanded. But the person that is only concerned about that one, are they really concerned about the brethren? Because I assemble. And I can make a case that Hebrews 10 ain't just talking about Sunday. If he talking about Sunday at all. Because brethren were encouraged to come together regularly to provoke one another to love and good works. It ain't about you solely. I'm coming to be stimulated. But I can also sit at home and say I'm going because I don't need stimulation, or I'm not concerned about stimulating anybody. Well, I don't have to go. I'm not sinning. Well, you may not have law saying you have to be there. But see, love gonna move you. Everything I have to do ain't written in law. That's a whole nother subject for a different day. Some things I do, most things I do is a genuine love. It's out of a genuine love for God and his people. I don't need a law when I'm governed by love. Does that make sense? See, David doesn't mention a sacrifice there, do he? He doesn't mention an offering, does he? He mentioned God and people. And that's why he was glad. When you come to an assembly, any assembly, not just the one we only focus on the Passover, but any of them, why do you come? Here's a better question. Why don't you come to the ones you don't come to? When assembling itself is about provoking the brethren to love and good works, I come looking for somebody to stimulate. And if by chance me and Bonner got an issue, me and Bonner are in a place together as a family, and I say, Brother Bonner, we need to fix our issue so that we can clean the house, keep the house clean. Because if we don't keep the house clean, God will judge the house. And everybody in the house will be affected if we don't clean ourselves up.